Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new PennyWise podcast from Lee Enterprises. I'm your host, Teri Barr. So, you are probably knee deep into the holiday shopping season at this point, and you've probably also heard us talk about this here many times: supply chain issues. I don't know if you're running into this at this point or if you're just sort of thinking about what could this mean as you get your gift giving underway this year. Well, we are very lucky to have Kimberly Palmer back with us again. Kimberly is a personal finance expert with NerdWallet. And Kimberly, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This is one of those things I have to believe many of us didn't know or couldn't even really relate to before it happened, the supply chain problem. So how would you describe this? What happened that made this a very real reality for so many of us?
Well, basically, it all started during the pandemic, as so many things did, where everything changed very quickly. There were a lot of labor shortages when it came to the supply chain. In China, there was lots of backup in terms of getting things shipped off. And then even as items arrived in the United States, there were backups there as well. So it really all goes back to the pandemic, causing all sorts of labor shortages throughout
Yeah.
the supply chain.
And have we caught up or are we catching up finally?
We have, for the
Okay.
most part, caught up. However, there are a few product specific, category specific areas where we are still seeing delays. For example, cars it can still be hard to find the specific car that you want. With some electronics, when it comes to that use chips, and there's still shortages when it comes to chips. There's some delays there, and also some grocery items. So it can still be hard to get your hands on baby formula, for example, especially
Oh,
if there's a specific kind that you want. And so while in general, the situation has resolved and it's certainly better than it was a year ago, there are still a few areas where we're seeing delays.
okay. Well, let's help our holiday shoppers out and make this a good shopping season. Would you say, based on what we just talked about, is the holiday shopping season underway? Is it here right now?
It has already started. It really started earlier than ever. I'm pretty sure it was a record because we saw the sales begin the first week of October, which we had not seen before. And
Yeah.
so basically, it is in full force. The good thing for consumers is that it means that you don't have to wait. If you see a good deal, you can go ahead and buy it and spread out some of your purchases over these coming weeks. And so that can be an upside for consumers.
Okay. There's a survey by the National Retail Federation, and it shows close to 40% of us are going to shop earlier than ever. So that means many people have already been out there, kind of as you suggested, right?
They have. And I think that can really work in consumers' favor because it means that all of your expenses aren't hitting at once. You have a little more flexibility to spread out. The danger is that it's easy to overspend because we might forget what we bought a few weeks ago. So we do
Oh,
have to stay organized.
yes. And what about the retailers who maybe brought in merchandise early? Can that be a benefit to us?
Well, this is what's so interesting about the supply chain because we see in reaction to the delays from last year, a lot
Yeah.
of the retailers did anticipating that over order. And so they have excess inventory, whereas last year there was too little. And so what it means for consumers is that we're seeing some pop-up discounts that we didn't expect. And so if you go to your store, a local store, and you see they have excess inventory, you might see that it's marked down just because they need to move that off the shelves. And so
Ah,
the excess inventory really does work in consumers' favor. And we are seeing some extra discounts based on that excess inventory.
okay. That's good to know when you're out there shopping. And what about products in supply? We should be able to see everything. At least that's what it seems like right now.
I mean, that's the good thing for consumers is that in general, across the board with consumer goods, with toys, with clothing, with makeup, personal products, those are really coming through the supply chain without too much trouble. And so for the most part, we are back to normal and we can shop and look for those discounts and not be too worried that things are going to run out. Although, of course, if you have something that you just must have and it's something that might sell out, you don't want to wait to buy it.
Absolutely. We've talked about this issue too. When everything finally comes through, then there's almost too much inventory, but maybe that could be a benefit to us as well.
I think it really can. And this is where it pays to just be aware when you're out shopping. It can be hard to see where there's excess inventory when you're shopping online, but when you're
Yeah.
going store to store in person, you can notice where there's excess items on shelves. Maybe it looks like there's not even enough room. And in a lot of cases, store managers, they might be incentivized to actually get those products moving. They can offer extra discounts. And so you do want to be aware where there is extra product. That is where there's an opportunity for shoppers to maybe get that extra deal.
That's awesome. Keep your eyes peeled on those shelves, definitely. So, do you think we will see any sort of maybe lingering shortage on items throughout any part of this holiday shopping season?
I think the worrisome areas to keep
Mhm.
your eye on are consumer electronics because of the chip shortages we continue to see. Of course, cars, which isn't exactly something that is, very common to give at the holidays, but it's just something to be aware of if you are in the market for a new car. And then lastly, I would just say, with kids' toys, we actually see this all the time. Even pre-pandemic, we see the hottest toys selling out. And so if you know your child just really wants one specific thing, you want to buy it early.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned earlier in our conversation here, some grocery items might be hard to get your hands on. And I know some things are at extremely high prices, but yet we want to have our lunches and dinners and holiday get-togethers. Is there a suggestion when it comes to trying to really get your hands on what you need to make a great dinner or lunch?
Yes, this is such a hard area right now because the
Yeah.
prices are just shockingly high every time we go to the grocery store. There are some things you can do. So number one, you want to use an app. Like I like the Flip app, that's FLIPP, but you can use whatever works for you just to make sure you are shopping around. If you have multiple stores that you can use, you want to compare prices because the sales, they do differ from store to store. It's very
Yeah.
specific to where you're going. So if you can do a little research ahead of time as you're planning out your menu, especially if you're
Yeah.
hosting and you're buying extra food, you want to think about that. And then consider opting into the loyalty program of your grocery store. It's a great way to get additional discounts.
And one thing I want to mention, and I know this just from talking to you in the past, you have a family, you have kids, so you know what you're talking about. You use a lot of the things that you tell us about, right?
I have to. I have to because it's so expensive. I mean, I have been
Yeah.
shocked by our grocery bill. And so I'm trying to do all of these things because it's really the only way to manage with these high prices. I think
Yeah.
it's shocking for everyone.
I think so. I think you are right. So, is there anything or any way we can actually be prepared for this holiday? We all want to be okay. We want to still celebrate, but what do we do to just kind of give us that edge to be ready for anything?
Well, the best thing you can do is make your shopping list early. If you haven't done it already, do it today so you know what it is you want to buy. And then just keep your eye on those products. The second you see a deal, go ahead and buy it. If it's something really specific,
Yeah.
just don't wait because you never know if that will be available in a few weeks with so many people shopping early. So I think just for us shoppers, that means we have to be a little more organized, a little more on top of things this year, just to try to get those deals and work our way around any supply chain issues that might pop up.
And I know one thing we've talked about in the past too, just in shopping in general, if you buy it early and then all of a sudden you see a better price, you can deal with that.
I'm so glad you brought that up because this is really a good strategy to have in your
Okay.
pocket. So a lot of retailers, especially all the big ones, with the exception of Amazon, they offer price matching policies. And what that means is that if you make a purchase and then you see the price drop a week later, it's such a frustrating feeling, but a lot of
It is.
retailers will actually make up that price difference. And so there are a lot of rules to be aware of. For example, in-person store probably won't match the price you see at an online competitor. So
Mm.
you have to make sure you understand the specific rules of the price matching policy. But as long as you do that, you bring your receipt in, you get that refund. That's a great way of shopping early, but still making sure you get all those discounts.
Absolutely. All right. So, considering the supply chain and what's happening right now, it sounds better. That is for sure. What's the bottom line, Kimberly?
The bottom line for consumers is to be extra organized this year. Start shopping early if you haven't already, and make sure if you do have something on your list that might be in short supply, you just want to don't you want to not wait to make that purchase because that way you'll be prepared. You won't be surprised by any last minute supply chain issues. As we've discussed before, anything can happen. There could be a weather disruption in December.
Oh,
Nobody can predict it, and so you want to be as ready as possible.
Absolutely. All right. Good luck shopping, everyone. And Kimberly Palmer with NerdWallet, thank you so much, as always, for your terrific tips to help us get through this season.
Thank you, Teri.
Yes, I'm Teri Barr, your host of the PennyWise podcast from Lee Enterprises. A new episode every Thursday, and we'll see you next week.